Broads Media.
Bravo! Bravo, squad! Bravo, team! Way to go on the road. Afternoon game after a bonker situation in Dallas and win. Beautiful effort for sure. Before we talk about it, if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button too. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all the support. If you're looking to buy tickets to go to any event, any game out there, promo code BROADS will get you $20 off. And there's some really great prices for some upcoming Sixers games. It would be a no-brainer to utilize that and get yourself to a game for a solid price. Promo code BROADS, SeatGeeks checkout, and lastly, TikTok at Broads Media. We're having fun over there. With that all being said, enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. A big victory for the Sixers. They got off that 2-game losing streak. Forget about it. No longer here. And they did what they needed to on the road. And let's not overlook the fact that they played a game in Dallas just a couple days ago, 10 o'clock. It got paused. It basically felt like it tipped off at 11. And then you have a quick turnaround going to Chicago and playing an afternoon game. That is not normal, right? There's this thing that's always stated when it comes to professional sports, and it goes by the name of these people are creature of habits. You go to certain cities, 7 o'clock games, 8 o'clock games, right? It's just the nature of the beast that you play at night. Well, when you go from your internal clock being used to an East Coast time, you go to Dallas, it's already delayed as it is. It gets pushed back even more. Your internal clock is out of whack. Now you're going to Chicago afternoon, right? There's a lot happening, and then I don't want to hear that Chicago was down Zach LaVine. They didn't have certain players out there. I'm not going to knock the Sixers. They didn't have Matisse Thybulle. And would DeMar DeRozan go off for 45, 9, and 7 if he was out there and if he was available? Probably not. And I do want to attack that conversation more as we continue, because all throughout today, I hosted noon until the game today. So I led you into Sixers basketball on the Fanatic, and we had this hypothetical discussion on if it took Daryl Morey, Matisse Thybulle to find a way to grab a Bradley Beal in a Ben Simmons trade or a James Harden in a Ben Simmons trade, would that hold you back? Half the callers said yes, half the callers said no, and then when you see this game get played and Furkan Korkmaz gets annihilated and the team had no answers, the Sixers had zero answers on what they were going to do for DeMar DeRozan. He was getting his 2-point shots all throughout. That mid-range game, it was the DeMar DeRozan show in that department. And it's like, hey, if you had Matisse Thybulle out there, and I disagree that Matisse Thybulle, over a 7-game sample size, would have the ability to match the star level of play of the, you name it, the top player on any team in the Eastern Conference to get to the NBA Finals, that him playing 38, 39, 40 minutes of play on the defensive end, not worrying about the offensive side whatsoever, over a 7-game series would be the difference in going to a title or not. I'm not downplaying his handprints and his fingerprints on the game, but let's be realistic here. You can't overvalue it either and say, yeah, well, if you're going to match his play with the stars of the other teams and make him play that many minutes, how are you supposed to survive 5-on-4 basketball when Joel Embiid could easily be doubled and they're allowing Matisse Thybulle just to stand there wide open because there's no such thing as respect for his ability to shoot at all? And that's just reality of the situation. But for this game on this individual or this specific night, for an individual being in there, would that have made an impact? Sure. I mean, obviously, having him out there is better than not having him out there when someone goes off and you don't have Ben Simmons. He's crying and nobody is a defender on your team. Yes, but they won the game. They won the game. So if you outscore that person going off, and then if your argument is, well, if Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine were out there, well, you wouldn't have 45 from DeMar DeRozan. That would be split up within the others, so it's not like 45 for DeMar, X amount for Lonzo, X amount for Zach LaVine, and Zach LaVine's going off for 38, 39, 40 points as well. He wouldn't have had the ball as much in this outing, so he wouldn't have exploded the same way. But it goes back to, even if someone can score and drop a bunch of points on you and you don't have defense, because that's the major concern. What do you do defensively in the playoffs if you do trade Ben and you do trade Matisse Thybulle? Not that this is supposed to be about those two. This is more about what just happened against the Bulls. But you know what? We're here, and we're just going to rock with it. Even if one guy has their game, you can still win as long as your players execute. Tobias Harris in the fourth quarter, putting up some nice buckets, getting the steal, taking it to the rack. He had the major dunk as well, although sort of Blake Griffin-esque, if you will, where he somewhat threw it down on the defender instead of actually slamming it. But even after that possession, he had a nice take to the basket for an and one. Not that he was knocking down the free throws in that moment, but still, I do think it's important to note what Tobias Harris did for you late down the stretch. It was solid. It was so damn important. Joel Embiid with the 40-burger. I don't know which play was my favorite. We could talk about block defensively. We could talk about a three-pointer, and just the fact that he's able to feel that confidence, step back three. I mean, it's amazing what he brings to the table, but, you know, Vucevic was basically admitting to himself, this is hell. This has to be what hell looks like because I'm getting destroyed. I'm getting annihilated. He's targeting me. He's coming down the lane full force. I have to wrap him up. I have to put him to the oh man, I put him to the free throw line and he made his bucket, and now he has an opportunity for a three-point play. What in the hell do you want me to do? Vucevic definitely was getting destroyed. It was a fun watch for sure. And if you remember, there were times earlier in the career of Joel Embiid where it didn't look like this. It wasn't this. It wasn't this deep low post presence and the ability to just annihilate that matchup as easily as he did today. There were times where it was tough. There were times where they were going back and forth. That's where you see the growth on an individual basis between Embiid and Vucevic, and it was beautiful. He was just a stud. It's what we're accustomed to seeing at this point for sure. Tobias, by the way, more than just 23 points and his double digits in the fourth quarter, but he finished with 8 and 5 as well. So he filled out the stat sheet. Niang with that 3 at the end, which was major. There's nothing sweeter than needing a bucket to just end it. Shut up. Shut up, shut up, Bulls. You're not close. You think you're closer than what you really are. Let's see this ball movement bang. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm coaching the other team and I see what happened with the Dallas Mavericks the other night, you would think to at least anticipate witnessing way more zone. Just throw a bunch of zone at this team and see if they can get by. And if they do, then you make your adjustment. Then you figure out, okay, let's try something different, but knowing that it's pretty damn basic and blinking on a radar right in front of everyone's faces, the Sixers get exposed. The Sixers can't execute. The Sixers don't know what they're doing when it comes to the zone. So I'm just starting this bad boy off. You think about a 48-minute game. Let's rock with minute one. Let's go zone nonstop and see if they could ever figure this bad boy out. Let's see if this puppy gets figured out. And that relates to what I explain all the time, the difference between postseason and regular season basketball. You're so used to your own journey, and the Bulls are worried about what they're doing next and what city they have to go to and what team's coming to town, whatever it is. I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but they don't have time to really heavily analyze everything Sixers related, all their matchups. They just focus on themselves, and that's why when we discuss how much different it is, well, that would never fly by, right? In a 7-game series when the head coaches are putting their noggin to the test and really studying the books to fully digest what they need to do to improve and to keep the other team on their toes when they're playing each other so many damn times nonstop until one team wins 4 games. So, you know, that's just an example on why and how, on top of just the players being way more dialed in and pushing their games to the next level, on why it's completely different. I had to watch Furkan today play a little point guard, and it really tells you how desperate they are in that position without a Shake Milton. They don't have the ability off the bench to really give someone the rock and say, hey, go have at it. That's why, and this isn't the only reason why, but we scream and we're upset when Doc Rivers doesn't stagger the minutes like we saw at the beginning stages of this game where Joel Embiid went went to the bench. Tyrese Maxey stayed out there. Maxey had some nice threes early on. It was the Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey show, definitely in the beginning stages of the game. But yeah, I mean, they both were just knocking down shots from the three-point line. That was their bread and butter tonight, with just making some timely threes and making a decent amount of them throughout, as the game was playing out, to keep themselves in a nice, comfortable spot for sure. And it's crazy because I wanted to get to the stat here. Maxey, last year, his threes off the dribble were 22% taken. So 22% of his threes off the dribble, and he scored at 23% of them. This is courtesy of Derek Bodner. And then this year, 39% of his threes are off the dribble. So that's a 17% increase, and he's making them at basically a 41% clip. So that just shows you the numbers on how much he has improved in that area and has become very sharp and way more confident. And that's really what it boils down to, is he knows when the ball's in his hands, there's a screen set, and he's able to create some separation off of his teammate, making that pick or screen for him, and he sees the wide open shot. I'm taking this. I will shoot it. While at times I'm watching Seth Curry feel the need to pass up open looks, and that definitely doesn't feel good. He's someone who's capable of annihilating a game, really taking it over and getting on a hot streak. And there's so many times, I swear, where I'm going, shoot it, pull the trigger, let it go, let it fly. And nope, that's not exactly what happens. And it's frustrating for sure, and it bothers me. But that's been somewhat of a storyline with this team. It's not to the same level as it once was in the previous stages of this season, but it definitely still shows its ugly head at times. There's no doubt about it. So Doc Rivers, I thought, had some fascinating words before the game even began, and it was in regards to this whole James Harden thing. And you heard the coach of the Brooklyn Nets talk about this as well, where it's like, so you're saying you're not trading you're not trading James Harden. It's like, that is correct. We're not trading James Harden. And not that you anticipate him saying something different. Yeah, this guy's out of here. Forget about it. I find it interesting that Sham says something, and then I had Paul Hudrick on of Liberty Ballers. He was my guest on The Fanatic today, and he brought up, I didn't see this clip specifically, but he brought up the fact that Woj on TV was talking about how Kevin Durant wants him here. He wants James Harden here, and he's making it known to the Brooklyn Nets that I want to play with James Harden. Let's just flip the script a bit. If Joel Embiid tells the front office, I want X, Y, and Z, don't you do everything in your power to keep it as constructed as you possibly can, let's say, with your biggest player wanting something specific? And oh, by the way, that player he wants happens to be a superstar in this league in James Harden. Now, maybe that's leaked information from the Brooklyn Nets side to kind of cool things down, while Shams is saying the other thing. And I'm paraphrasing a bit, I do find it crazy that Doc Rivers basically admits what we've all been talking about, which is, we know what Rich Paul wants. We know what Clutch Sports is trying to do, and that's create a certain narrative. And like I said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but Doc pregame was talking about how, info is leaked from a certain guy who works with the same agent. And yeah, I mean, that's basically what's happened here, is they want a story to be perceived a certain way. Maybe that's to open up discussion from other teams around, feeling pressure. Oh, hold on a second. They're getting close with the Brooklyn Nets. Let's see if we can swoop in and make a deal or something along those lines, just to get the Ben Simmons train moving a bit, and his name being thrown out there again on social media, and that kind of having an impact throughout. So it's just something to laugh at the same time. It's coming down the stretch here, and I'll still stand my ground and say that deep down, my thought is it's happening more in the offseason than it is right now, than it would in the trade deadline. It just opens up the door for a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more Daryl Morey fingerprints, has some more time and some more versatility involved in everything for sure. And just to be clear here, if it was to happen before that, and it was to happen before the deadline ends, if you're so worried about defense and all, it's not as if Daryl Morey, and this stays true for offseason trades, if it's Matisse Thybulle that ends up being in the deal, it's not just James Harden being in here that would change everything. You can still go work some other situations out to gather another player to help you out. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. Okay, we definitely got a star to play with Joel Embiid. That's important. A three-headed monster in Maxey, Embiid, and whoever is that third person. And not in that order, of course. And then Tobias Harris, if he's playing this smoothly, not that I'm going to guess that happens all the time, but he has the ability to, as your fourth starter, I think it's important to note at least, we did lose some things defensively. And while it is an offensive league, you still need to hold your own defensively. The name that's always brought up was last year in P.J. Tucker. And it's fair to bring up what P.J. Tucker was able to do on the defensive level, but the difference is he's actually a threat in the offensive game, standing there in the corner, no matter how many points he scores in a game or not. And he was playing over 30 minutes of action. So there is legitimacy to how much he was battling out there and playing and not scoring too much. But he is a career player in this league that can shoot the three. And you at least have to be fully aware of what he brought to the table in that department. Now, I got a text message here, and it is very long. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to read the whole entire thing. But this is from a first-time texter. His name is Ronnie from Northeast Philly. This is a bit long, with some stats, not advanced. I just wanted to say I disagree with your assessment on Matisse. You say he has gotten worse as an offensive player, but no basic statistic out there supports that. Then he starts breaking down a little bit. He's 0 from 3, 0 and 3 feet. He was 65.3%. Oh, from 0 to 3 feet from the basket. He's 65% from that spot and 74% this season. I'm a little confused on how this is broken down. But basically, he's given me stats on him scoring in general. The real thing here is he's gotten worse at three-point shooting every year. Yeah, he might have some numbers close to the basket because I will agree that he got better from right around the paint area. He's cut nicely and all, but cutting nicely, we shouldn't be sitting here saying, yes, Matisse Thybulle has learned how to cut nicely. This is a beautiful experience for us, and now we're golden. No, I mean, he had one job, and that's get better at the three-point line. It's gotten worse. 35%, 30%, then under 30%. It's just inexcusable. And now he's flirting again with 30%. Or whatnot, but even that is not okay when you see the difference in how some players take those strides in the right direction. There's enough time at this point to say that we need to see more growth. This is happening at a snail pace, and we need more. So, sure, I mean, there's something to be said about him cutting, and then at times in the dunker spot, and Joel Embiid getting doubled, which opens up a lane for him to run towards the basket and get the basketball within rhythm. I'm not downplaying that, but from an overall perspective of what he has become and what he has grown into, and I'll use air quotes because I don't even think he's really grown into anything. He's always been a stellar defender, and he's basically just kept that pace up, which matters, but I think people are overvaluing it because let's be realistic. Matisse Thybulle was here last year. Matisse Thybulle was in the playoffs last year with the Ben Simmons, and he was playing minutes. And that's not to say he didn't have a role, but I'm just telling you, like, if he was that special, where people are putting him on the pedigree that he can match stars for 38, 39, 40 minutes of play and just forget about the offensive side and hiding him as much as possible, which does not seem to be something that can work, in my opinion. He wasn't able to have that level of impact last year to do that, yet all of a sudden, we're going to snap our fingers, and that's what we need this year to take over the next step here. And no, the answer is go get your star. So that shouldn't really limit you in the let's go get a James Harden or let's go get a Bradley Beal discussion. Not that I feel it's going to happen, but I do think it's reasonable to at least bring it up in conversation because that's kind of what's happening around right now. Anything else kind of happened that I missed here? Embiid's 40 and 10. Nope. DeMar went off for sure. And it was annoying, right, to see him score the buckets that he was making. Not ideal and all. Just one of those games, though, where the other guy got hot. You didn't have the answers. Furkan trying his best, and he was getting destroyed. You threw anyone his way, although Tobias did have a nice steal, and that was a good defensive effort just in general, and what kind of sparked some things there. Good defense to pursue a little bit. That was just a good defensive possession. Doesn't obviously change the whole conversation in a bigger sense. It shows you, though, even if you can't stop a great player, you can still win as long as your offense produces, because offense in this league is more important than defense. That doesn't mean defense isn't important at all. Now, we're going to rock some Anytime Hotline text messages and some more of them. DeSimone Jewelers, though, I have to tell you about how phenomenal they are. They are my jewelers. I went to them for my fiance's engagement ring, and I continue to go back. Birthdays, holidays, Valentine's Day is coming up, fellas. Make sure you get your significant other a beautiful item from DeSimone Jewelers. They're a family-owned business located in Haddonfield, New Jersey, previously in Jewelers Row. Will, Lou, Nick, and Mike, they treat you like family. They work with you to get the best design at the most reasonable price you will find in the entire market. They provide custom jewelry, jewelry repairs, appraisals, watch repairs, battery replacement, and so much more. If you tell them that Brode sent you, they will hook you up like no other. Their website is down below in the description, DeSimoneJewelers.com. Definitely give them a look, give them a call, give them a buzz, and say Brode sent me. You'll be in business. It's a no-brainer. Okay, let's round things off here with a couple text messages. Mark texts in and says, how do you feel about the afternoon game, Broats? I sort of enjoyed it. Anyway, it was nice to see Tobias in the fourth stand out from the rest. You always praise his January game, and this somewhat shown a similar style. Yeah, I agree. And to answer the beginning part of that, how do I feel about the afternoon? I think there was a time where I didn't like it. I think it was after that MLK. It was the MLK game. They played a 1 or 2 o'clock game in Washington. They didn't really play well. It was tough to watch. And I'm like, it kind of feels odd. Now, it felt odd maybe because it was a Monday, but a Sunday afternoon game when there's no football on other than a garbage Pro Bowl that is a waste of time and basically flag football. I couldn't watch 1 second. I seriously did not watch 1 second of the game. It was more just seeing things that were getting thrown around on Twitter, but I wouldn't spend my time that's very valuable watching that slob. If you were able to think about baseball, right? 4 o'clock on Saturday, 1 o'clock on Sunday. If there's ways to spend Saturday, Sunday afternoon basketball, and I know they do 3:30 ABC, but I'm talking more regularly within their not so much national broadcast feed, but their standard basic package for their regional packages as well. To me, it's a no-brainer. I actually enjoyed it. So the Monday after MLK, I thought it was weird, but it's just like it's a Monday, so you're just trying to get into the flow of your work schedule, and it's so much just in there, and just because it's a weekday, it throws it off. I understand them doing it on MLK Day, obviously, but it's just in terms of, all right, the weekend's over, let's start our weekday and get into the flow. Oh, what's that, a 1 o'clock game, 2 o'clock game, whatever it was? I liked this Sunday afternoon tilt for sure. The game's wrapped up. You complete all your stuff for, the post-game show and whatnot, and you still have some time to kick it, shower up, put on some comfy clothes, relax with the dogs, with the fiance a little bit. I did enjoy it from there. When it comes to Tobias Harris, I thought he was awesome, flat out. I thought he was great. He made some really nice buckets. I was upset with him the other night because he took 0 threes against the Mavericks, and that's just unacceptable. We're going to need him to explode a bit more offensively and be a beast, and I thought he actually at times took this game over, and he did it with other players. Other players played a role in it. I mentioned Niang. I mentioned Danny Green had a big step-back 3 in there, which is just funny because he just seems to be beat at this point, and Joel clearly getting his 40 points. I love at this point, Joel got his 40. Okay, Joel got his 40, right? Like, Joel gets 40 points, and it's, you chalk that into 40. He's at the point where he's at the top of the league as a 7-foot center in scoring. Let that settle in. Let that sink in with the amount of double teams and the amount of ways teams have to play him, and he's got to kick out for some of his other teammates. For him to do this on a night-to-night basis and thinking of the minutes he's playing, and he said he was sore today a little bit afterwards with, just the way that everything played out with him today. Just awesome. Just awesome that's somewhat background noise. That's off to the side. When you do it consistently, it somewhat becomes expected. Whether that's fair or not, right? Because when he has a bad game, it's like, I expect you to put up 38, 36, 40 points. To that level, you kind of have to breathe. But speaking of breathing, let's be real. After the last 2 games, this team stinks, this team's awful. Yet the same people that were bothered by the losses, and you're allowed to be upset by the losses, but don't take it to an extreme. The same people that love the 15 of 18 wins are also the same people that are crying that this team's not good enough after 2 losses in a row. They're not good enough to win the championship as constructed with their 15 of 18 stretch, and they're not good enough after 2 straight losses. Doesn't change regardless. I don't know how one's supposed to change or the other, because as I alluded to already, that when you talk about NBA playoffs, everything intensifies by 7 billion. So none of this is really relevant to a level. I mean, obviously it's relevant, but it's not relevant because the Sixers last year first seed. What happens? Well, they failed. Why did they fail? Well, they had a huge issue at the point guard position that succeeds in the style play of regular season hoops, but not necessarily postseason hoops. And that is just the truth. Thank you, Mark, for texting in. Nick says, the Niang shot was beautiful. Silencing an away building for a big three has to be one of the coolest finishes in sports. Oh, yeah, I mean, my counter to that would be a buzzer beater. If we're talking buzzer beaters or something like that, yeah, but for less stuff like that, that's a crazy moment. If you're on the road and the Bulls fans are getting hype and they're waving all sorts of stuff to try and get you to be distracted, whatever, I don't know. I'm just thinking of maybe people behind banging the bang sticks, the boom sticks, whatever they're called. But regardless, I don't even know if they had them in there. I'm just making stuff up at this point. For them to feel some noise and feel, hey, maybe there's a chance to win this game or steal one or make a run or whatever, for you to make that three with barely any time left and, you know, just to feel the deflating feeling that all those Bulls fans, we've experienced it on the other side, no? Games at the Wells Fargo Center, a team looks like they're going to have a good possession here. There's a wide open kick out for three. The ball is in midair. There's 30 seconds left. It's a 3-point game before the bucket goes in. Now it makes it a 6-point game. And, everyone does that at the same time, right? 20,000 people. You get all hurt. Your heart starts pounding with sadness. You do that to the other team on the road, that's got to be a killer moment for sure. So outside of a buzzer beater or something wild, more of a natural thing that happens more consistently, I would agree with you there. He continues and says, the Bulls pushed through the game because DeMar. No one was able to stop DeMar. The team stepped up, though, and you have to give them credit. I saw a lot of fans really bothered by the DeMar thing, throwing up their hands, shrugging their shoulders. This is why defense matters. This is why defense matters. Defense does matter. There is a conversation to be had about defense. I think what this tells you, though, is if you can counter with superstar play of Joel Embiid, if it is a James Harden, if it is a Bradley Beal, right? If you have a collected group of stars, it can outweigh the fact that you are lacking in that area. And that's what today showed. Not that I'm just a one-game sample size guy, because I live and die with the fact that it takes a lot of games in a long period of schedules to see a long period of schedules. A lot of games on a schedule. I'm losing a little bit here. I'm out to lunch. I don't know what's happening. We'll wrap things up here after this comment. And I don't even remember what the comment was. Oh, yes. I need a bigger sample size to fully tell. But I've watched the NBA enough to see how this league is played out. And you need to worry about offense and scoring and elite superstar play more than you do a role-playing defender. And that's reality of the situation. Not that they don't have a role, but the other roles are significantly more important. And I'm willing to go grab those roles, the big superstar one, over the other. Because we know as currently constructed, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. Sometimes risks have to be taken. You know what happened with the Toronto Raptors when they took a risk? They won a championship. So it's hard to win a title. It's not easy. So it doesn't mean it automatically happens if you do take a risk. But I'm willing to take a risk. I hate even calling it a risk. Grabbing James Harden or Bradley Beal, whether it's at the end of the season or at the deadline, it's not really a risk. It's making your team better. What's the risk? Getting a better player. And I love this. We'll end here. The reaction I got today was, you're going to trade Ben Simmons to Brooklyn, and he's going to come in here and haunt you. Wait a second. You think Ben Simmons is going to come back to this town in a playoff series and crush your souls with elite play after he won't show his face right now, when there were times where we'd be like, we want you back? Like we would easily accept him more coming before all of this. If he just returned, the acceptance that he would have there compared to in another uniform, on another team, in a New York City market, by the way, coming to town as an opponent. I mean, if he can't do it just as a Sixer, there's no way in hell that I can envision him doing it as a Nets. And if he does do it, then I'd be not pleasantly surprised. I told you, I'm losing my mind already. I'd be surprised. You have to prove it to me first. Show me first, and then I'll say, okay, he did it. But there's no way I believe that could be the case, that he will haunt you forever and come into this town and crush you and beat you down and make you earn every inch and be some stud in a playoff series that takes the Brooklyn Nets to an elite journey. It's just hard for me to believe that. It really is. All right, with that, we're going to end things here. I want to thank everybody so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Broads, and I will see you next time.